Good evening. I'm going to call the March 22nd, 2022 regular meeting of the Town Board to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Present.
Councilmember Delarada.
Here.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Here.
Councilmember Brennan.
Here.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Here. Thank you. We will all now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the February 22nd, 2022 regular Town Board meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Minutes are approved. We will now move to the public hearing. Will the clerk please call the public hearing?
A public hearing regarding adding a historical preservation code to the Town of Niskuna Code.
Thank you. Now the public hearing is open. Please state your name and address.
My name is Gloria Kishton. I live at 207 Union Street in Schenectady. And I am the chairperson of Schenectady Heritage Foundation, which is a county-wide historic preservation nonprofit. It was established in 1979, and we address historic preservation through advocacy, education, and grants. Your town historian, Dennis, and your planner, Laura, asked me to come tonight to just talk a little bit about preservation. And we are thrilled that you are moving toward adopting some sort of historic code for the town. So as you consider these things, as I say, we're really happy to help in any way possible. We've been advocating for historic preservation as we were an offshoot of the Stockade Association, and some of the members of the association wanted to focus more on historic preservation, and so that's how we got our start. We were very involved in the Stanford Mansion issue, which was very controversial in the town. We were very happy to support that. And I think that the fact that the court case went in favor of preservation of the mansion at first and then was reversed shows that a lot of the community really did support the preservation of the Stanford Mansion. The modern historic preservation movement really got its start in the mid-20th century when Penn Station in New York City was demolished in 1964. And that really upset a lot of people. And as a result, not only from that, but also from encroachment of highways and that sort of thing, demolitions and threatened demolitions, the national government passed a Historic Preservation Act. And after that, many states followed suit. And so many of the states have their own historic preservation laws, and local areas also have their own codes, which you are interested in developing. Also, back in the day, Grand Central Station, you might remember, was threatened with demolition. And one of our first ladies, Jackie Kennedy Onassis, was actually a real supporter of preserving not only Grand Central, but went on to help a lot in historic preservation. Niskayuna actually has a very rich history that covers prehistory, history, and indigenous peoples and European settlers. You do have some landmarks that are on the National Register already, but much of your history is not protected by anything. So we're really happy to see that you're moving towards adopting some codes that will save things like, for example, your Erie Canal ruins, I don't believe have any protection at all. Your Shaker history, I don't think has any protection at all. And as New York State moves to really develop the Erie Canal Heritage Area, you are really primed to take advantage of those historic tax credits and all the benefits that come with creating a historic district code. Now, you might ask yourself, why should we care about historic preservation? Not only do we learn from our history, but I think the biggest thing is that you create a sense of place that you can be proud of. More, not that you're not proud of Niskayuna now, but it's just a different aspect of Niskayuna that you can be very proud of. It creates diversity of architecture. It also creates economic stability and community revitalization, and your planning department would be very interested in that. Also, it's really moving towards being more green. There's nothing more green than reusing an existing building. And as I mentioned, heritage tourism is becoming more and more important. And there are a lot of ways to get funding for some of these projects. So our national legislation really defined the purpose of historic preservation. And you can find out a lot more about that by going to the website of the National Park Service, because they administer historic preservation in the United States. So these two acts, both on the federal and state level, really provide a lot of help. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Our state preservation office has a lot of help and can guide you through this process. So your first step would probably be to do an inventory of your historic resources in the town, and there is funding through the Preservation League in New York State to do such surveys. So in closing, I just want to say that if you think back at the Stanford Mansion project, and the building wasn't demolished, I would say it was threatened with demolition, but think back at that time and ask yourselves if you're happy with the results. Right now, I believe there's an empty Walmart grocery store there, if I'm not mistaken. And how magnificent it would have been to have the mansion still standing there with that magnificent stand of trees as a welcoming ingress into Niskayuna. And again, Heritage Foundation is very happy to help, and Dennis has my contacts, and we hope that we can help you soon. Thank you.
Dennis Brennan, 854 Barton Place, Niskayuna. First of all, I would thank Gloria for coming to speak to us tonight, and the information she presented certainly is going to be very helpful, and I hope to be working with her in the future. As town historian, as someone who has made some small contribution to discussions which have led to this proposal, it won't come as a surprise to anyone that I strongly endorse it, to believe that its time has come, in fact, past time, for its adoption. That said, I would like to suggest a few additions to the document as it's now written, which I believe would help to strengthen it. First of all, Section 130-4 stipulates procedures for dealing with demolition of buildings more than 49 years old. I believe that section should include not only demolition, but also relocation, major alterations, and encroachment on historic structures by development. Second, when and if demolition of a historic structure is permitted, and certainly will happen, the Preservation Commission should be allowed the time necessary to examine and document the structure thoroughly throughout the demolition process. A lot can be learned by what is being taken down. We can't keep it. And finally, if not already in part of the town's building code, this code should include some enforcement and penalty provisions for violations of the Preservation Code. Thank you.
The public hearing is still open, and the public hearing is open for anyone who wishes to speak. For the public hearing,
Yes. Oh, no, excuse me.
is there anyone who is still wishing to speak for the
Ms.
public hearing?
Supervisor, I'd just like to say one thing regarding this public hearing. I think those two presentations were wonderful. I do remember the Stanford Mansion. I remember sitting in that audience and listening. I believe the supervisor back then was Luke Smith. And there was a lot of debate about that. And I was a volunteer at Ingersoll Memorial, which I believe was located right in that area. And it was very sad to see that go and what is there now. And I believe our historian made a reference to amend this to include the provision relocation. And that is probably because we all remember watching that mansion being wheeled around on trusses all throughout that parking lot, trying to find a spot to put it. It is a beautiful building. It does not get appreciated like it would be if it stayed where it was at that time. And it was a much nicer area, welcoming people into the town. But I do thank you for both your presentations.
Thank you, Councilmember De La Rada. Thank you. The public hearing is still open for anyone who wishes to speak. Seeing no one left to speak at the public hearing, I am closing this public hearing, and we will now move on to the privilege of the floor. Please state your name and address for the record.
Leslie Gould, 1919 Pawtucket Avenue. I'm going to try to speak very clearly and enunciate clearly because I noticed that the minutes from the February 22nd meetings weren't entirely accurate, and I listened to the playback and I understand why. But the statement that in case of municipal government, you are bound by state civil service law for municipalities, which closely parallels its Scott theory. And I'm sure I referenced New York State civil service law for state agencies because it is the parallel. There are some tiny differences here and there, but for the most part, it's very much the same. And I did raise a question about how employees would access the new human resources consulting group, and I still don't know the answer to that. Other than that, my only comment really is on the ceremonial resolution, which could easily be a sense of the board resolution that supports Ukraine against, in my mind, the totally unjustified, unwarranted, and unprovoked war against Ukraine. Thank you.
Linda Rizzo, 2229 Fairlawn Parkway, Niskayuna. I have a few comments to make. One is, the first one is the hiring of an attorney on need basis for $190 an hour. I'm a little bit amazed at that because it was never discussed at the finance meeting. No process was followed. It wasn't on the board agenda. It was in the packet, I was told. I don't understand this. I know that the attorney you want to hire is Attorney Hess. I'm not disputing his knowledge of town law. He was the town attorney. What I'm disputing is, why are you doing this when you didn't follow the proper procedure, the process? I watched the finance meeting. They're a joke. 25 minutes, if you're lucky, nothing of substance. This wasn't brought up, and yet it's passed. The same thing happened with the human resource meeting, the human resource firm that you hired. Exactly the same thing. No process. You hired the firm on recommendation from the controller. The controller recommended the same firm to Rotterdam. Rotterdam let the firm go. They hired another reputable law firm in Albany. Their up fee was $5,000, their startup fee. We were charged $15,000 with the other company. No process again. Now, the next one is a little bit sensitive, but it involves the home rule that you're voting on tonight. I'm not opposed at all to anyone having a window period to get on to the next step in their pension plan, that's being opened. That happened to me. I went from tier 3 to tier 2 via a bill that was written by the Senate because I missed the window period. But I had to pay up front thousands of dollars out of pocket to get in. My organization didn't pay a dime, and I didn't expect it. My concern is the paying of the $500,000 out of the fund balance. Again, never went through the process, never went through the finance committee. And actually, this has been in the works for 2 years. And some of you may be shocked at this. I talked to Senator Tedesco's office today, and the legislative aide in charge of this, of writing the bills or presenting them, told me this has been going on for 2 years. Denise McGraw is the one that brought it to them. Denise McGraw was the person responsible for the bill. No one up here was responsible for this. And secondly, I told Denise 2 years ago, I did not agree with using the fund balance or paying large amounts of money out of pocket without a thorough analysis of this. I read the 2 court decisions. I read the Supreme Court that dismissed the case because it didn't follow administrative procedures first. It didn't exhaust that. I read the appellate court decision, which upheld the Supreme Court on that basis. It did not fault the district. Neither court case faulted the district. Now, I understand that some people are, I'm sympathetic to those people. Believe me, I support the police. I am not one of those defund the police radical from the left that we heard about for the last 3 years. I support our police. I'm concerned, again, the process wasn't followed. Didn't go through finance, no discussion. The district was never cited for being at fault in this. I mean, the district, the town, never once. And either 2 major court cases. And yet, again, no process. During the election, I heard from board members that were campaigning, oh, we have no process. We don't have this going on. We've got to establish this. We can't do this without it going through finance. 3 times you voted on stuff that never went through finance. No process attached to it. This is going to be, well, actually, these 2 are going to make up the 3. You know, it's frustrating because actions speak louder than words. You either care about process or the finance or you don't. So now we have an HR committee, an HR firm that we're paying $15,000 up front. Another town changed. They got one for $5,000, a reputable law firm. We're going to pass the home rule. It's going to go through. But 2 years ago, this was been in the works. Denise McGraw was the one that got the bill through STEC and got Tedesco to co-sponsor it. And now I know there are people that are going to sit up there and say, oh, we were responsible for this. No, you weren't. And again, what's right is right and wrong is wrong. I was against when Denise wanted to do it, and I'm still not in favor with the town paying $500,000 out of the fund balance for this to go through. And that's my opinion. And I'll state it again, I support the police. But I am tired of board members running for election, talking about process, knocking other people, not being upfront, and then bingo, process doesn't matter anymore. Oh, they give all sorts of excuses. Maybe our attorney does need help. Okay, I'm not saying that. We always had a deputy attorney. But this should be examined. It should have gone through the finance committee. It should have been on the agenda. The HR firm you hired, the same thing, and this should have been on the agenda as far as it going through finance. There should have been a detailed discussion about the $500,000. And that's all I'm going to say. And you know what? We live by our votes. This goes awry. We have a big deficit. Believe me, the voters will remember it. Thank you.
Please
Good-
state your name and your
yeah.
address. Thank you.
Tim Rizzo, and I reside at 1317 Viewmont Drive. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for providing me with the privilege of the floor. I'm here to support the adoption of a resolution that would allow John Connor, Jeffrey Relation, Joseph Twitty, and Paul Daly, police officers employed by the town of Niskuna, to elect to be covered by the provisions of Section 384 of the Retirement and Social Security Law. This would entitle them to the full rights and benefits associated with coverage under such section by filing a request to that effect with the state comptroller on or before June 30th, 2023. I recognize that if this resolution is adopted, the town will be responsible for making a one-time payment of $548,000. That sounds like a lot of money to me, but it's insignificant when compared to the total budget appropriations. I'm a police officer in the city of Schenectady, and I'm the vice president of the Schenectady PBA. I know hundreds of police officers across different municipalities and towns. None of them are participants in the current plan that these 4 officers are in right now. Police officers have an elevated risk of death relative to the general population. Possible reasons are shorter life expectancy, stress, shift work, obesity, hazardous environmental work exposures. The average U.S. male lives to be about 79 years old. The mean difference in life expectancy is 22 years between the average male and a police officer. That means that the life expectancy for these officers may be as low as 57 years old. Under the current plan that they're in, they can't retire until they're in their 60s. Please make this investment in John, Jeffrey, Joseph, and Paul in support of the distinguished service they provided over the past 20 plus years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vince Daly. I live at 2231 Webster Drive, Niskuna, New York. I've been a Niskuna resident for over 55 years. My wife, Lynn, and we raised 2 sons. My son, Paul, is raising his 2 children in town. And Paul is also one of the police officers with the pension. Unfortunately, one of the 4 officers were put in the wrong retirement plan. When they were first hired, that's when it happened, and it should have been corrected within a reasonable time. I've been lobbying this for 15 years with supervisors, with the town council, and I'm asking the town council tonight to pass the amendment for 2022-76 to give the supervisor the authority and the reprimand to approve with the PBA and the police officers. It's gone long enough. Police officers put their life in danger every day. This is the least we can do for them. Again, I ask you all to approve this tonight. Thank you.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Gary Connor. I live at 1187 Van Antwerp Road. I am Detective John Connor's father. As you may know, I'm also a retired Niskuna police officer. I retired in June of 2007 after 29 years of service to the town I love. I've lived in the town for 65 years and went through Niskuna schools, married, and settled in the town to raise my family. Both our sons, John and Brian, followed in my profession and are Niskuna police officers. My wife Carol is a Niskuna town clerk and has been for 17 years. The reason for my writing to you is to put my full support behind sponsoring the two bills that are going through the legislatures and the Senate. The efforts behind the retirement to get rectified for the 4 police officers, Lieutenant Joe Twitty, Sergeant Jeffrey Lations, Detective Paul Daly, and our son, John Connor. As a colleague of these officers, a parent of one, and more so a taxpayer of the town, I implore you to support these bills going through the New York State Legislature and Senate so that we can finally get this resolved so that these 4 dedicated officers can retire when they choose. Thank you.
We did receive letters that should be read for privilege of the floor. So I'll do my best to read these interspersed with community members who are present tonight. This letter is from the Niskuna Police Benevolent Association. It states, "Dear Supervisor Puccioni and members of the Niskuna Town Board, we as the Niskuna Police Department, PBA, would like to express our unwavering support for the town board in adopting New York State Assembly Bill A07642 and New York State Senate Bill S07238, which allows the potential for 3 of our members, Sergeant Jeffrey Relation, Detective John Connor, and Paul Daly, along with former member Lieutenant Joseph Twitty, to elect into New York State Police and Fire Retirement Plan 384. The following letter is from Michelle Osterlich, 76 Pheasant Ridge, Niskuna. Esteemed Supervisor and Town Board members, I wish to express my gratitude for your efforts in resolving the issue of retirement benefits for 4 distinguished members of the Niskuna Police Department who have served our town honorably, each with more than 20 years of service. This administration has shown great leadership in a short period of time in finally addressing this long outstanding issue. The continued dedication of these 4 members of the Niskuna Police Department, as well as the thoughtful leadership of this administration, is remarkable. I am proud to witness such professionalism and commitment. Sincerely, Michelle Osterlich. Is there anyone else from the community who would like to speak currently?
Roy Thornton, 1337 Regent Street. Some of you may recognize me as the face behind the bobolinks. We've got a bit of change of pace here. I was gratified by the positive response given my proposal at the last town meeting to establish grassland bird and pollinator habitat on the capped landfill at Blatnick Park. I have given copies of one of my presentations to Ms. Martinelli, and anybody who wants one could get it. Because spring is here and birds and the bees and the butterflies will show up soon, I hope that a modified mowing schedule can be in place by April 15. Grassland birds start nesting about May 15, and pollinators need flowers even earlier than that. I would be happy to assist in mapping out critical areas, in deciding on mowing methods, in designing and placing signs, in listing the Mohawk Hudson Bird Club to survey the bird life on that landfill, and however else I can be useful. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other members of the community who are currently present who would like to speak during privilege of the floor? Okay, I will read the next letter. This letter was sent by Scott and Lisa Stevens, 31 Chestnut Lane. I am unable to attend tomorrow night's meeting. Will you please read the statement below during privilege of the floor? Thank you. Dear Supervisor Puccioni and Niskuna Town Board members, due to a clerical error made over 20 years ago, 4 Niskuna police officers were placed in the wrong retirement plan. John Connor, Joe Twitty, Jeff Relation, and Paul Daly have been engaged in a years-long attempt to try to rectify an outstanding issue with the town regarding their retirement and the plan in which the 4 of them were unwittingly placed at the time they were hired. Currently, there is a bill supported by members of the town board making its way through the New York State Legislature, Bill A07624 and S07238. This bill would authorize the town to make modifications to their current retirement, which would in turn allow for them to be entered into the plan they should have been placed into originally. Combined, these men have served the town for 87 years. All 4 of them have already passed the standard 20-year retirement mark. Retirement errors are fixed every year by towns across New York State. Despite ample opportunity, previous boards have refused to fix this error. With a fund balance well over the 10% of the annual town budget allowed by law, this could be paid for without an increase in taxes. These officers are among the top paid earners in the town. Placing these men in the correct retirement will open up positions in the department for younger, cheaper police officers. Forcing these officers to stay in the 30-year plan will cause the department to continue to have a top-heavy, bloated personnel budget. This 30-year plan requires that these officers stay on the job until they are 62 years old. The cost to the taxpayers of these men staying on the job until 62 years old will far outweigh the cost to fix this error now. The time is now to fix these officers' retirement for the benefit of both these men and the taxpayers. This board has a moral and ethical obligation to fix this error immediately. As taxpayers, we support putting these 4 officers in the correct retirement plan and would like to see all of the board members approve any and all necessary funds and resolutions needed to get this done. Sincerely, Scott and Lisa Stevens. I have quite a few letters to read. I'll continue then. This next letter is from Kelly Hodeling. Please forgive me if I mispronounced your name. I am in support of the Niskuna Town Board adopting the New York legislation Bill A07624 and S07238, which would allow modifications to the current retirement plan that impact the following officers: John Connor, Joe Twitty, Jeff Relation, and Paul Daly. Thank you for your time. Kelly Palatolo. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Joe Lazzari, and I'm not a native resident. I'm not a Niskuna resident. I'm a Schenectady resident. I live at 221 Harborside Drive. Just to emphasize what's going on right now as far as this adoption of this resolution for these officers. I'm a retired police officer from Schenectady. I did 27 years. Loved every minute of it. Wish I can go back. But when my retirement came, it was like I got rejuvenated because the job does wear you out. And I'm familiar with some of the officers. I know the great job they do. And to deny them retirement is really, it's unfathomable because these guys dedicated their 20, 25, 26 years and they dedicated. And why would you want these officers still on the street if they're disgruntled? It's not a good situation to go to work. You're happy, you're not happy. You know, you can spend time with your family and your friends, and on your retirement days. And to disregard that would be really a bad move. So I fully support that you pass this legislation, this bill, because it's well-deserved. And again, it does open up opportunities for younger police officers to be more energetic, more diligent, and like I was, very happy to come to work. Once you get to a certain age, there's things you see on the street on a regular basis, it does wear you out. So I fully support them. And not only myself, but several members from our department and some other departments who couldn't make it tonight. I'm kind of representing them also from Schenectady and Rotterdam. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. This letter is from John Baker, who resides at 1338 Myron Street. Members of the board, my name is John Baker. I reside at 1338 Myron Street. I am reaching out today to voice my support for New York State Assembly Bill A07624 and New York State Senate Bill S07238, which would authorize you to make modifications to the retirements of Lieutenant Joseph Twitty, Sergeant Jeffrey Relation, Detective John Connor, and Detective Paul Daly, and place them into the retirement plan that they should have been placed into when they were hired. The fact that this happened in the first place is suspicious at best. The fact that over 20 years later, and at least 15 years after it was discovered, it still hasn't been rectified is unconscionable. These men have served the town of Niskuna faithfully for at least 20 years each, and it is long past due that we give them their due. I hope this board has the courage to rectify the mistake that was made long ago. Thank you for your time, John Baker. Please state your name and address.
Hi, Dan Elliott, 2213 Garden Drive, right here in Niskuna. And been a town resident for more than 60 years and been in the Grand Boulevard Fire Company for 40 plus years. Met a lot of the officers. I've heard about the problem longer than somebody said 2 years, but I've heard about it for a long time. Different politicians, when they campaign door to door, they say they're going to fix it. The time now is to fix it because you just don't want to keep pushing this stuff off. I'd like to move on to new stuff. I'd like to take care of this, take care of the guys that protect the town, do a lot of work around here. It's a tough job to do. I've been in situations where they work hard and I don't envy what they have to do. And to keep them fresh, the 20-year retirement is a good thing. So I think this group here should do everything they can to make the retirement the way it should be. I don't know if it was a mistake in the beginning or an oversight or whatever. I'm not going to debate that, but this is the time to fix it. Thank you.
A mic would help. The next letter is from Robert Wessels, 4 Hedgewood Lane, Niskuna, New York. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am contacting you this evening to send support for the New York State Assembly Bill A07624 and New York State Senate Bill S07238 that would repair the retirement plan that several of our NPD officers were wrongly placed into. As a Niskuna resident and supporter of law enforcement, I think it's only fair that these officers get the proper benefits that were erroneously placed. These bills would empower the town board to correct an old mistake and would allow these officers to receive the proper retirement, one that they have earned by faithfully serving the town. The fact that these officers didn't have the proper guidance/leadership when they were hired should not be held against them. I feel that all the members of the town board should show 100% support and unity to these officers and fix this long overdue mistake. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter. Robert Wessels. The next letter is from John Baker, the president of the Niskuna PFA Local Number 4151. Ladies and gentlemen, I am reaching out to you today to advocate for some of my fellow civil servants. I am the president of the Niskayuna Permanent Firefighters Association, and I represent the 18 professional firefighters who live and/or work in this fine town. It has come to our attention that there are several members of the Niskayuna Police Department who have erroneously been placed into an inferior retirement plan. We wish to voice our support of New York State Assembly Bill A07624 and New York State Senate Bill S07238, which would empower the town board to correct an old mistake. These men have faithfully served the town for over 20 years. We believe that it is time to place them in the plan that they should have been placed into when they were first hired. I am thankful that when I was hired by the fire department, there were administrators here that ensured that I was placed into the most advantageous plan possible. As a 26-year-old at the time of hire, I was both unaware of my options and did not really understand them when they were offered. I and my fellow firefighters believe that the town board should support these officers who have served the town and finally fix the mistake that has been looming over these men for many years. I thank you graciously for your consideration of this matter. John Baker. There are still more letters. John Neugbauer of 2501 Waymer Lane, Niskayuna, writes, I am writing to show my support for fixing the 4 police officers' retirement. I believe it should have been done a long time ago. Julie Neugebauer, who also lives at 2501 Waymer Lane, Niskayuna, also states, I am writing to show my support for fixing the 4 police officers' retirement. I believe it should have been done a long time ago. The next letter is from Ronald Kazuba Jr. Town Supervisor and Town Board members. My name is Ronald Kazuba Jr. I am a Niskayuna resident and career first responder. It has been brought to my attention that there are currently 4 Niskayuna police officers that have been placed in the wrong retirement plan upon being employed several years ago. I am writing to express my support to get these 4 police officers placed into the rightful police and fire retirement plan like all the other police officers within the Niskayuna Police Department. I can relate to these 4 individuals starting out in the police and fire profession. I personally started my career as a firefighter in 2010 and was guided into the most beneficial retirement plan offered by my employer upon getting hired. I honestly did not understand all the benefits related to my retirement, as most new hires in the police and fire services do not at this age, but was thankfully guided in the right direction by others looking out for my best interest. I am not sure how these 4 individuals of the Niskayuna Police Department were misguided towards the least beneficial option of a retirement plan or how this oversight occurred, but I would like to see this resolved for them. My research has shown that nearly 80% of police and firefighters in New York State are in a special plan of 384, 384D, 384E, and 384F. These plans have no age restriction for retirement as long as the years of service have been met. This is one of the enticing benefits of being a firefighter and police officer in New York State and is a needed benefit during these difficult times. The professions of police and fire have always been geared for young, healthy individuals. Both careers are physically and mentally demanding. The work schedules can be overwhelming, with responses occurring 24/7, with expectations from the public to be on point at all times. That is why the retirement option of 20 years has always been offered to police and fire individuals across the state. Expecting a police and fire individual to be mandated to work to the age of 55 or 62 years old is mentally and physically draining on a person. These positions are not like normal careers. We are required to be in a constant state of readiness to serve the community and protect the residents at a moment's notice. I am asking each town representative to do everything they can to get these 4 police officers into their correct retirement plan. I feel this will be beneficial for the town, the police department, and its residents. I feel it will pay dividends in boosting morale within the department. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Ronald Kazuba, Jr. The following letters from Heidi Rogers. Ms. Puccioni, I am writing to ask that you please help to fix the matter of retirement benefits for several Niskuna police officers whose paperwork was incorrectly filed when they were hired about 20 years ago and who are not currently eligible to receive the retirement benefits that are meant to be part of their employment package. This has been an issue that has been known for many years and has yet to be resolved. Please make this right. Sincerely, Heidi Rogers. The next letter is from Mike Rogers. Good afternoon. I wanted to take a moment to let you know that as a resident of Niskayuna, I am in support of placing the 4 affected police officers in the correct retirement system. It is my understanding that this was an error many years ago and that multiple administrations have worked over the years to try and correct it. I believe this is on the agenda for next week's board meeting, and it has my full support. Thank you, Mike Rogers. Are there any community members who would like to come forward and speak? If not, I will read the next letter. The next letter is from former Chief of Police Francis E. Wall. Supervisor Puccioni and members of the Niskuna Town Board. I am writing to the members of the Town Board to voice my full support for the enactment of a Town Board resolution that corrects and consolidates the deserved retirement plan for Niskuna Town police officers. Additionally, I am writing to voice my support for the passage of New York State Assembly Bill A07624 and New York State Senate Bill S07238. The responsibility of town government to provide adequate, appropriate, and uniform retirement benefits for our sworn Niskuna Town police officers has been a particular concern for me, especially during my tenure as Chief of Police of the Niskuna Police Department. A close review of the content of a prior New York State appellate court case regarding retirement benefit anomalies for certain sworn members of the Niskuna Police Department had caused me to review and address seemingly unequal retirement plan assignments for certain sworn department members. The unfair practice addressed in the appellate court case troubled me, and I took up the issue directly with Town Supervisor Yasmin Syed in 2020. While this important issue has languished and gotten kicked down the road for far too long, it is now time for the Town Board to approve a local law and a home rule message to the New York State Legislature in support of correcting the deserved retirement plan for the affected police officers. In doing so, this action should thereby standardize the New York State retirement plan assignment for all sworn and employed Niskuna Town police officers. Francis E. Wall. The following letter is from Todd Vaccaro. My name is Todd, dear Supervisor and Town Board members. My name is Todd Vaccaro, and I am a dentist here in Niskayuna. I grew up in Niskayuna and now own a dental practice on Union Street. I am a big supporter of our police officers and police force and have recently found out about an injustice that is affecting some of our officers. I am writing to ask you to please support bills A07624 and S07238. These two pieces of legislation will help rectify this injustice. John Connor, Paul Daly, and Jeff Relation are personal friends of mine who had a problem with their retirement paperwork back when they first joined the police force. This issue caused their retirement benefits to be mislabeled, and therefore they are not getting the benefits they deserve. As I am sure you are aware of the issue, I will not go into the details, but I find the fact that this issue has not been rectified since their first year on the force to be appalling. From what I know about all three of these individuals, they are great benefits to our town police department. I ask that you help us respect them, their families, and the job that they have done since their entry into the force, and do what you can to make sure the issue with their retirement is corrected. I have faith in the board and hope that you will do everything you can to adopt these two pieces of legislation. Thank you. Todd Vaccaro.
I'm going to help. The next letter is from Jesse Lyons, address 1390 Myron Street. I'm writing in regard to the proposed change to the Niskuna Police Department retirement plan. I wanted to go on record as in favor of the reverting to the previous retirement plan. My feeling is being a police officer is by far one of the most stressful work environments in the country. Officers sign up to do the job with the understanding, like teachers and any other public employee, that after X number of years of service, you would be eligible to retire. I don't think it's fair to change it midway through someone's service. I thank you for your time and consideration of this matter. Thank you. The next letter is from Matthew Flynn. I am writing in support of Niskuna's 4 police officers who have issues with mistakes made in paperwork filed years back for their retirement. I hope that this email helps to rectify this issue. Thanks for any consideration and support.
Okay, I will also help read a few letters. The first letter is from Alexis Licht of 906 St. David's Lane, Niskuna. Dear Niskuna Town Board members, we are writing to you today about the outstanding issue with the 4 police officers, detectives, and their retirement plan. We would like to show our support of Bill A07624 and S07238 that would authorize the town to make modifications to their current retirement plan. As a lifetime member of the town of Niskuna, my husband and I believe that this is the right thing to do. These men have given many years of service to our community and deserve to have this rectified. Thank you for your time and consideration, Alexis and David Licht. The next letter is from Nala Kafaga of 816 Red Oak Drive, Niskuna. Dear Supervisor Puccioni and Town Board, as a long-term resident and registered voter, I am writing to express my support for Bill A07624 and S07238, authorizing the town to make modifications to the current unfavorable retirement plans of Lieutenant Joseph Twitty, Detective John Connor, Detective Paul Daly, and Sergeant Jeff Relation. It is imperative that this town does all it can to ensure that these gentlemen who have served this community with honor over their long careers have this unfortunate situation rectified as quickly as possible. Please support and adopt Bill A07624 and S07238, ensuring that these devoted public servants receive the dignified retirement that they have earned. Thank you, Nala Kafaga. And the next letter is from Jesse Bonanno, who did not state his address. And he writes, Dear friends, I hope this finds you well. As a resident of Niskuna, I am writing to ask your support of Bills A07624 and S07238 so the retirement plans of Officer John Connor and others can be rightfully modified. I have read the bills in full and understand the financial implications to our town and taxpayers. However, I believe that the fair treatment of these men who have protected our community should be prioritized. We should support our officers and send a clear message that our town values them and the sacrifices they have made for decades on behalf of the residents. I am standing by if you'd like to discuss this further or if there's anything I can do to help bring resolve to this situation. Best regards, Jesse.
The next letter is from Genghis Khan, Planning Board Member, 816 Red Oak Drive, Niskuna. Dear Supervisor Puccioni and esteemed town board members, I hope this email finds you and your loved ones well. I would like to voice my support for Bill A07624 and S07238, authorizing the town to modify the current unfavorable retirement plans of Lieutenant Joseph Twitty, Detective John Connor, Detective Paul Daly, and Sergeant Jeffrey Lation. In a world where people who desire to do good find themselves stymied, with heavy costs being paid by others, our town has a chance to do the right thing. These men have honorably served our community for a long time and should have this issue fixed as soon as possible. As a fellow public servant in our town, it is important that we do all we can to support and adopt Bill A07624 and S07238 and ensure that these devoted public servants receive the dignified retirement they have earned. Thank you, Genghis Khan. The next letter is from Leila Gafaga. Don't think I have don't have an address. Supervisor Puccioni and town board members, I'm sending this message in support of New York State Legislation Bill A07624 S07238. This is to fix 4 NPD officers' retirement plans. I am in full support of approving this bill. Officers face countless long-term psychological and physical strains. Forcing them to work far more than the standard retirement program would be a huge injustice to them. These officers were placed into the wrong retirement plan unbeknownst to them and have had to endure the impact of this error on many levels. They swore to serve and protect this town at all costs, risking their lives daily. The least we can do is ensure that they can retire in an appropriate time. I truly thank you for prioritizing this bill, doing the right thing for our community, and showing what Niskuna stands for. Leila Gafaga.
R.G. Kukuros of 895 Northumberland Drive. Dear Supervisor Puccioni, good evening. Several town residents, including myself, have recently become aware of at least 4 town police officers who were placed in the incorrect retirement system in New York State when hired. It is our understanding that it has been a multi-year battle to rectify the situation, that there is an expense to the town attached to fixing things, and that there is a vote tomorrow, March 22nd, regarding this issue. I am writing to communicate my support of these officers and ask that you do the right thing and vote in favor of finally allowing these hardworking town employees to have the retirement benefits to which they are duly entitled. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, R.G. Kukuros. The next letter is from Mito Kafaga, who also did not state an address. Hello, I am writing this message in support of passing legislative bills A07624 and S07238 that would authorize the town of Niskuna to make modifications to the current retirement plans of several officers. It is my understanding that 4 officers in particular are being negatively impacted by their current retirement situation, one in which they were unwittingly placed in by the town at the time they were hired. I personally know these officers and have watched them loyally serve our community for many years. I ask that you do the right thing and give them their due right, in my view, to manage their own retirement. Mito Kafaga.
Jason.
Hi,
Hi, please
My
state
name's
your name and your address.
Ray
Thank you.
Fillion, 1214 Carlisle Drive, Niskayuna. I did send a letter late today to all of you, but it's probably not in time to be read. So I will summarize it. I support this program. We have to rectify this. I believe that over the course of the next 10 to 10 years, we will more than make up that money with lower salaries. Even if it didn't result in lower I support it. My taxes go up, so be it. They deserve to have this. It was a clerical error. It was nothing they did wrong. And it just was too late when they found out about it, to correct it administratively. The only way now is through the bill and your support. I strongly ask you to do it. I reinforced the comments earlier about the stress on police officers. 20 years is enough if they want out, and they should have a chance to go out. Thank you.
The next letter is from Kelsey Irwin, and she writes, Supervisor and members of our town board. My name is Kelsey Irwin, and I write to you today in hopes of getting closer to a resolution on a years-long attempt with the town regarding retirement for a few select members of the Niskuna Police, John Connor, Gary Relation, Joe Twitty, and Paul Daly. Although new to Niskuna, support for our law enforcement has been long time running. Through real-life experiences with my own grandfather, an NYPD, and my cousin, a Schenectady police officer, I know what these men and women give and do for us on a daily basis. These officers give their lives and protect us, and that protection should be reciprocated. To have been unwillingly placed into a plan that does not support retirement as it should, call me crazy, but is similar to charging someone wrongfully. We are all in the business of supporting our own, and now we have a chance to do that with your support. I fully support these men, Niskuna, and you as town board members and supervisor. I hope that we as a community can come together and get this bill passed and adopted so that these men are able to retire on their own terms, all while continuing to serve and protect us as they have so far. Please do not hesitate to reach out or let me know if there's anything else I can do to help. Many thanks, Kelsey Irwin.
The next letter is from Zach Cassidy Dorian, no address listed. Good afternoon. Several town residents, including myself, have recently become aware of at least 4 town police officers who were placed in the incorrect retirement system in NYS when hired. It's our understanding that it has been a years-long battle to rectify the situation, that there is an expense to the town attached to fixing things, and that there is a vote tomorrow, March 22nd, regarding this issue. I am writing to communicate my support of these officers and ask that you do the right thing and vote in favor of finally allowing these hardworking town employees to have the retirement benefits they are entitled to. Thank you, Zach Cassidy Dorian. The next letter is from Gretchen DeBobs, and there is no address. Good morning. Several town residents, including myself, have recently become aware of at least 4 town police officers who were placed in the incorrect retirement system in NYS when hired. It is our understanding that it has been a years-long battle to rectify the situation, that there is an expense to the town attached to fixing things, and that there is a vote today, March 22nd, regarding this issue. I'm writing to communicate my support of these officers and ask that you do the right thing and vote in favor of finally allowing these hardworking town employees to have the retirement benefits they are entitled to. Thank you, Gretchen DeBobs. From William Capiello, 1353 Hawthorne Road. To who it may concern, I'm writing on behalf of Paul Daly, Jeff Relation, Joe Twitty, and John Connor. As a taxpayer and resident of Niskayuna, I ask for your continued support to help assist these members of our wonderful police staff to support the NYS legislature that would authorize the town to make modifications to their retirement plans that should have been resolved years ago. These gentlemen risk their lives every day for us. They protect and serve with honor and should have the right to retire with the same standards as any other police officer in the state. I ask for you to put yourselves in their situation and appreciate the opportunity to assist in every way possible. Thank you for your time, William Capiello.
Are there any other community members present who would like to come to the podium and speak during privilege of the floor? Okay, then I've come to my final letter. Oh, Leslie, please.
Leslie Gold, 1919 Pawtucket Avenue. I certainly support getting these officers into the right retirement system, but that raises the question because the town must have been paying in on their behalf to one of the state retirement systems. And if I'm correct and it was the employee retirement system, the officers were probably paying in a share too. Does the town recoup the money? Can it be transferred from one retirement system to the other? If they're both under the state controller, I would think they could. But I think if that hasn't been looked at, it should be.
Thank you. Are there any other community members present who would like to speak during privilege of the floor?
My name is Maria Fiumano. I live at 701 Portinkil Way in Rotterdam. I have grown up in Niskuna most of my life. I've worked in emergency services for nearly a decade and work as a 911 dispatcher. And I can tell you firsthand that we send these men and women to all of your worst nightmares. I'm confident in saying that very few of you have the misfortune of understanding exactly what I mean by that. Each shift, I myself worry about them making it home safe. There's no one more deserving of justice than these officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other community members present who would like to speak during privilege of the floor? I have one last letter. This letter is from Courtney Connor Didario. Dear Ms. Puccioni and esteemed colleagues, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Courtney Connor Didario, and I am the proud sister of Detective John Connor, who has proudly served the town of Niskayuna Police Department for 24 years. Along with our brother, Patrolman Brian Connor, John followed in the footsteps of our father, Gary D. Connor, who honorably served for 29 years as patrolman and dare officer and joined the ranks of the many fine men and women who grew up with and consider family. Growing up with a father as a police officer in the town you live has its pros and cons. And as I'm sure you can imagine, and as Mr. Moskowitz knows firsthand. However, I distinctly remember when our father was inducted into the Niskayuna High School Hall of Fame in 1992, and my then 17-year-old brother, John, was asked to give the induction speech. As I sat in the crowded Proctor's Theater for the class of 1992 graduation ceremony as a mere 10-year-old, it was at that moment that I knew my brother would one day become a police officer simply based on the speech he gave about our dad. My brother has always been a man of few words, but an incredible source of knowledge and wisdom. I am the youngest of the family and the only girl aforementioned, and with a 7-year age gap between John and I, we didn't always have common interests. Yet, he was my older brother, and I looked up to him more than he will ever know. More than he probably even knows now. This is the same role he takes in the police department. A guy of few words, but vastly respected, full of knowledge, there to help when needed, and a plethora of years full of wisdom. We do not know what the men and women encounter every day on the job, and certainly this day and age is far more difficult than it was back when our father was on. Still, these men and women put the uniform on and go to work each day to serve and protect the very town we all love and live in and raise our own families in, and for us, we grew up in. New York State Senator Jim Tedesco, along with Assemblyman Phil Steck, have sponsored before New York State Legislature Bill A07624 and S07238, which, if you graciously adopt and implement within the town of Niskayuna, would allow Lieutenant Joe Twitty, Detective Paul Daly, Sergeant Jeff Relations, and my brother, Detective John Connor, the freedom to retire at their discretion. These men have put their lives on the line day in and day out for a combined 87 years of service for us. The residents of the town of Niskayuna, they have become family to our families and have been there for us when we needed them most. Thank you Supervisor Puccioni and the Town Board for your consideration in this matter. Respectfully, Courtney Connor Daddario. Are there any other community members who would like to speak for privilege of the floor? If there are no further comments, we will move on to our committee reports. Starting with police and public safety.
Thank you Supervisor Puccioni. I'm going to start with operations. Our Police Reform Implementation Task Force met on February 3rd and March 3rd. Our next meeting is April 7th at 5:30. NPD is continuing its transition to Lexipol policy manual in order to continue work on making our policies more comprehensive. A traffic engagement schedule was posted for the department. This will be specific and directed and based on data and community input. For fleet and equipment, we have 2 vehicles getting outfitted. Our vehicle repair bid was awarded to Auto Solutions. We have a thank you to Highway Department and Deputy Chief for their efforts on this transition. We are putting out a mini bid for 2 vehicles for purchase in 2022. Our body-worn cameras project continues to progress. We are voting on the resolution to match grant funds tonight. For our building, we had a drain pipe plugged in the Sally Port, and Charlie is continuing to work on getting this resolved. For training, Recruit Guest is progressing through the academy. Officers Walter, Camanzo, and Robinson are going to attend training to become field training officers. Chief Koshin and Lieutenant Twitty completed a week of training through the New York State Chiefs Association for new administrators. NPD is finishing training on autism, emotional and psychological disorders, and missing persons with Alzheimer's for law enforcement. NPD completed its annual TASER recertification training, and thank you to Officer Munger and Henry for their hard work on this. We had multiple citizen issues. NPD is continuing the transition period of Story Avenue's new town ordinance of weight limit. Mary Ann Kapunen requested a stop or yield sign at intersection of Middle Street and East Street. We had a public hearing on January 25th, but no one came. We are looking at the best platform to engage community feedback. Vanessa Wheeler of Fillmore Ave is concerned about speed. Traffic study was conducted and no speeding issues were found, but we're going to continue to monitor this. Jen Smith and Aaron Hall of Dean Street continue concerns of volume, speed, and commercial vehicles. They requested a broader look at traffic calming measures. A meeting is being scheduled with CDTC for a broader discussion. Officer Munger moved the sign to collect data from the southbound side. Officer Munger, Laura Roberts, and Chief Koshin continue their work on this. We had Supervisor Puccioni come to our committee, and she reported to our committee because she was representing Mike Cleet of Console Road, who was not able to attend, and he asked her for help. She shared that he has speeding concerns and would like a traffic study for the intersection of Brendan and Console. Chief Koshin said that he would also send out additional officers. Supervisor Puccioni also added that she has done some drive-arounds on the Troy-Schenectady Road, Birchwood, and Console Roads loop and witnessed community engagement and officers patrolling. Jacqueline Anderson requested NPD look at the intersection of Dorwalt and McClellan Street due to people not stopping at the stop sign. Patrols have been directed to this area to monitor this intersection. Scott and Tammy Kishbog were concerned over weight limits not being enforced on Van Antwerp Road between Balltown and Union. The chief and town attorney are looking into whether this section of roadway is in fact restricted. Niska Day is May 21st, and Lieutenant Twitty is working with the committee in anticipation of another successful Niska Day event. For court issues, there were lights out in the parking lot due to a power outage after a storm, but Charlie worked to get them fixed right away. Evictions continued to be higher than usual. Centralized arraignment program is still to be determined with a start date. And Judge Scagnelli is having his first COVID precautions jury trial. In fire department news, our annual active shooter rescue task force training with NPD is being conducted at Union College. It's currently going on. Thank you to all the agencies involved in this collaborative joint training. For personnel, we are interviewing two potential lateral candidates. In other news, we are continuing to look at our welfare check registry plan. We continue to look at community survey planning and continue to look at town code to update its language. Our next committee meeting is April 7th at 3:30. Community programs.
Community programs.
For community programs, I'm excited to report that our ski club was very successful. We had 69 skiers, which was an all-time high. Our universal application was completed and blasted via town email. Rec camp leaders and town pool lifeguards are still needed. If you can help out with that, please contact us. Summer programs will open for registration April 1st. Our bunny parade will be April 15th from 10 to 11. The plan is for in-person as long as the COVID numbers stay low. We have added contests to the parade with prizes for the best hat and best bunny ears. Spring soccer, the registration closes on 3/31. We're half full at all levels. We need coaches and refs. Please contact Julie Lohr if you can help with this. We have a resolution for a CIP grant tonight. This is money from our county for our summer concert series. Another resolution tonight is for the Niskuna Community Foundation grant application for improvements at our dog park. And our facility use manual has been updated and is up for resolution tonight. For senior program news, Linda O'Brien shared with us that there are many things going on at the senior center as usual. The Alzheimer's group was postponed one more month, but the senior exercise programs are going strong with classes such as chair Pilates and gentle yoga. We have 8 participants signed up for the Art In on March 4th. On the 19th, we had a workshop for making art with the iPad. April 5th, we have artist Laurel Lelimsky coming to demonstrate. The book club meets the first Thursday of the month, and The Great Divorce by Ilyan Wu is April's book. We're looking to possibly do a senior center pool party this summer, so stay tuned for more info on that. And in other news, the Schenectady Church of the Nazarene reached out to do a sunrise service on Easter at Lions Park, and a bike repair station will be added to Lions Park this spring. We don't have a date for that yet, but our next committee meeting will be April 7th at 3 o'clock.
Thank you. Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor. Highway Department and the Water and Sewer Department, we met on March 2nd for the highway and public facilities. We're fully staffed. We're also fully staffed with our Parks Department. Crews do their winter work as far as clearing brush on paths in our parks and doing maintenance work on all of their equipment. Snowstorms. Hopefully this will be the last time I have to report on them. The Highway Department's been doing a very good job with clearing of the snow, and hopefully we won't be reporting on that anymore. We do still have our parking rules for no overnight parking in the town, and that continues on. So just in case we get some snow, please don't park on the roads overnight. Items that are going out to bid is our Dean Street Park mowing, Baker Ave mowing, and temporary labor for our yard waste pickup. We had been doing that in-house during COVID, and now we may put that out to bid to see if we can get temporary labor to do that. Paving list, the Highway Department is working on the paving of the town roads for this paving season coming up in the summer. We work on a Cornell Local Roads program to see which roads are the most need for paving. Open discussion. We talked about the courts at Avon Crest. Ray reported that they are in very bad shape, and it's his recommendation that we look to possibly replace them. So we're going to need to look for grant money and or budgeting for that. He will do his best to try to keep them open the best that he can, but long term, we really need to look at replacing the courts in Avon Crest. Mr. Thornton, I think, is still here. We did discuss mowing at the landfill. Hopefully you and Mr. Smith can get together. I know we discussed that, and You also told us about possibly cutting, being able to mow some paths within the landfill for maintenance. We still have to get to the top of the landfill and in and about the landfill. So we did discuss that and we'll still work on that. As usual, we talk about work that needs to be done on our facilities. Some of it is here at Town Hall, and we're going to be working on getting a priority list together for those projects and getting some estimates on the work that needs to be done. Yard waste, they've been getting a lot of calls. When it gets warm and we get spring days, everybody thinks, oh, they got to come and pick up the yard waste right away, but not yet. It starts in the beginning of April. The announcement will be in the Gazette Friday and Saturday. It's on the town website, so soon enough that will be happening. Okay, our Public Works, which is our water and sewer and division. The items we discussed at that meeting. Attorney items were the Pierce Road extension, the Whitmire Drive sewer extension on our city water contract. Some of the water that the town residents have here comes from the city, so we have to look at those contracts. We have a company, Dish Network, that's requesting to replace some equipment on the town's water tower. And so when that comes up, we also look at how much the town's getting paid for that. So our legal department looks into those things. There's a resolution on for our Scada system. This is a system that helps our water and sewer and maintenance workers monitor our systems remotely so that obviously they can't be at every single pumping station we have in town. So we have what's called a Scada system, which allows them to remotely monitor all of that. That's on for a resolution. Finance Committee approval for some work on a backhoe that we had was also discussed at the meeting. And Finance Committee approval for replacement and some pump repair. The utility, spring, and commercial water bills will be going out soon. We have a resolution for that. Our wastewater treatment plant, we've been working with the contractors that worked at that plant. We've got some modifications that have to be made on some of the equipment there, and we're hopeful that will start to bring in some funds for the town within the next 3 to 4 months. Our water treatment plant also, we're doing work on that. We're doing well replacement and pump replacement down there. That was discussed at our meeting. And our next meeting is April 7th at 8 a.m. Thank you, Madam Supervisor.
I promise I will make this quick so we can move on to our votes. The only thing I wanted to add in addition to Councilmember McPartland's report from our Public Works Committee was the random yard waste, which begins on April 4th, and the weekly yard waste pickup begins on May 9th. You can check the website for a zone map of when your weekly pickup is and for more information on that. I also wanted to add that during one of our last snowstorms, I had the opportunity to ride along on one of 9 plow routes in the town. It's important to me to be in the field watching firsthand what our employees do, so I'm familiar with their operations when requests and resolutions come before the board. It was a great experience, and I definitely gained a lot of knowledge on what happens in the town behind the scenes during a snowstorm. Also, a couple weeks ago, I toured the water treatment plant on Lock 7 Road. We discussed what makes our water safe to drink and future plant upgrades. And again, I enjoy going on these tours because I feel that I can't faithfully do my job without a keen understanding of how the town works behind the scenes. We all know that when it snows, the streets are cleared, and when we turn on our faucets, water comes out, but the how and why is sometimes taken for granted. Unrelated to the Public Works Committee, I just quickly wanted to mention that it was a pleasure last weekend to volunteer at the Ukrainian Medical Supply Drive, which was sponsored by the Ukrainian Church and hosted here at Town Hall. I think Councilmember Brennan would agree with me that there were simply no words to describe the feeling we all had as we watched the constant line of donators and saw the looks on the faces of our Ukrainian community members. I think most of the volunteers at some point throughout the event were brought to tears as we watched in amazement as our community proved how strong we all are together. I thank Councilmember Brennan for organizing that event and for asking for my help in volunteering. Thank you, Madam Supervisor.
Thank you, Councilmember Moskowitz. Now, Economic Development, Historic Preservation, and Environmental Conservation Committee.
Thank you, Supervisor. The Economic Development Committee and Historical Preservation meets on the first Friday of every month. We next meet Friday, April 1st. I believe that's April Fool's Day, and that will be here in the town boardroom. It will also be hybrid for those that can't make it. We always have a lot going on in this committee. We've heard a couple of presentations about our historical development. That goes hand in hand with what we're trying to do with economic development and keeping the characterhood of the our neighborhood character, as well as the development of our riverfront from the Erie Canal to the Mohawk River. There's a lot going on with new businesses and big businesses as well. The Broken Inn is open for business. That is a wonderful spot right here in the center of town. I have heard great things about it so far, have not been able to get there, but we now truly do have a one-stop shop location in Niskayuna where you can really kind of do everything that you need to within walking distance of your home. We also have some bigger things going on. Very happy that the planning board and the zoning board are working with GE on a new complex, on a new building. So we always look forward to research and development here in the town of Niskayuna. And of course, the GE is a big supplier of that. We have news in the Zoning Board of Appeals. Our very talented chairperson, Maureen McGinnis, is leaving the town of Niskayuna. She'll be going out of state to accept further employment. We are going to miss her. I do want to thank her for her number of years in service. She was very dedicated, and she brought a very deep sense of compassion and kindness to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that is not an easy thing to do because things can get heated during those committee meetings. And she was able to really keep things at a very relaxed and calm pace. With that, I'm hoping that our new chairperson, Keith Frary, who has also been a very long public servant in the town of Niskayuna, will follow that lead. And he is an attorney like myself, so sometimes it can be difficult for attorneys to be as compassionate and kind as other lay people can. So we hope Mr. Frary can continue that on. She was also very passionate about bringing communities where people can age in place and with quality services for the elderly. That was a big priority of hers. Finally, I want to thank Schenectady County and the work that they have done on the hazard mitigation plan. That is kind of important when you need it. So if there is some type of hazard, be it through climate change or a natural environmental hazard, we need to have the support services in place. And the county has been very diligent in working on that countywide plan. I do want to thank our local county legislators, Michelle Osterlitz and Tom Constantine, for their work on that, as well as our county manager, Rory Fluman, and the Intergovernmental Cooperation Committee. It is very important that the towns and the counties and the cities all work together. It makes for a much more efficient place for all the taxpayers in that county. And with that, I will turn it back over to our supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember De La Rada. So tonight, I'm working off of the theme of collaboration that we have been focused on here at Town Hall. Tonight, we'll be discussing two resolutions that are very important and time-sensitive in the process to resolve the issue in the retirement system that has big ramifications for our budget and for the 4 loyal and long-serving members of our police force. It's about our budget. In essence, we're in a position where, due to an old problem in the retirement system, the incentives strongly discourage 4 of our most senior police officers from retiring. And carrying these highly compensated positions is expensive. But it's also about the officers themselves. They have worked with great distinction, and they deserve the certainty to plan their futures. And it's also about the morale and future of the police department. So this is a team effort. It has been truly a team effort. We will rely on Assemblymember Phil Steck to reintroduce the legislation in the State Assembly and the State Senator Jim Tedisco to move the legislation forward in the State Senate. In our simplest terms, these 4 officers were hired more than 20 years ago and were assigned by default to a non-traditional retirement plan that requires the officers to work until age 62 with 32 years of service. When I learned about this issue only 4 to 5 weeks ago from Chief Koshin, we were sitting in the Schaefer room and he shared with me for the first time this issue. And I stopped, I paused immediately and I said, we need to resolve this now. I'm a union member for over 2 decades of my adult life. I started my career as a middle school teacher in South Central Los Angeles. And I started that career with the understanding that I would be able to retire in 20 years. It was an incredibly challenging job. I worked there for 5 years with children who were coming from homes that they experienced violence, hunger, they were in high need homes, and the work was incredibly hard. And my colleagues and I, we worked hard, extremely hard, day in and day out, with this idea that we would retire in 20 years. And I think that teachers, nurses, social workers, police officers, first responders, we are the social safety net in the United States. We hold this nation together, and when things are falling apart, we are called on to pull it together. In general, the retirement plan selected by most police officers, and most of our police officers in this department, provide full retirement benefits after either 20 or 25 years of service, regardless of age. Now, this is a common problem, believe it or not. Niskuna is not alone in needing this corrective action. Approximately 100 similar pieces of legislation have been passed in New York State legislature and been signed into law since 2008. Let's pause and reflect on that. This is an issue across New York State, and there have been 100 pieces of legislation to rectify similar situations. In fact, the problem with prior default assignments to retirement plans was so problematic and widely recognized that in 2015, a law was passed so that the default now is that all police officers default to retirement plans that are based on 20 or 25 years of service. But that fix doesn't reach back to solve this issue for our police officers impacted by the old default rule. Towns and cities like Niskuna still have to work with state legislators for what we call home rule legislation, allowing local governments to fix past problems. So our plan is to act tonight because every year that this is delayed, the fix gets more expensive, and we want to try to get this done this year. Our new board is ready and willing to take action to rectify this wrong. So in addition to this important work, I have been working with public sector consultants to revise the employee handbook. I have spent a lovely afternoon visiting the senior center and getting to know the seniors who visit daily. In fact, my mother was one of them, and she's kind of known among the staff. I've been working with the Parks Department to develop a plan to determine what are the best next steps to make park improvements. I'm also incredibly pleased to report that the electric vehicle charging stations are being installed at Blatnick Park, Lions Park, and River Road Park. And these charging stations were funded by New York Energy and Research Development and National Grid. We are also working towards a residential composting program with New York Energy and Research Development. These are exciting times, believe it or not. They're times filled with a lot of hard work, hours spent working on all of these issues. I've been here till 4 or 5 daily, and also on the weekend. But the board members, we're working hard, we're working collaboratively, and we're also working and taking a bipartisan approach to make Niskuna better. So I want to thank you all. Moving on to the resolutions. We will start with resolution number 2022-73, sponsored by Councilmember De La Rada. Will the clerk please call the roll? I'm sorry, will the clerk please read?
A resolution adopting the Schenectady County Hazardous Mitigation Plan.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember De La Rada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution, yes.
Supervisor, just going to request that we move resolution number 2022-77 up, because the suspense is probably killing a lot of our residents. So maybe we could do that one and the next one next.
I will move 7.6 and 7.7 forward. I understand. Thank you. That's getting me a little out of order, so I'll have to get used to that. Where was I? John De La Rada. The resolution passes. All right. Let me pause. Okay. We'll skip a few resolutions and we'll move on to resolution number 2022-76. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the supervisor to execute a memorandum of agreement with members of the Niskayuna Police Department and Police Benevolent Association.
Thank you. I'm going to make a motion to amend this resolution as follows. The third whereas clause shall be amended to state, quote, Assembly Bill 7642 and Senate Bill 7238, as amended, are pending in the New York State Legislature and will require a home rule request. The fourth, fifth, and sixth whereas clauses, as well as the first resolve clause, shall be amended to add, quote, Assembly Bill 7642 before the Senate Bill 7238, and the words, quote, as amended for 2022, to follow the words, quote, Senate Bill 7238. Do I have a second on the proposed amendments?
Second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember De La Rada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The amendment passes. Do I have a motion on the resolution as amended?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember De La Rada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes,
5 ayes.
the resolution passes. Resolution number 2077. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing a home rule request.
I also make a motion to amend this resolution to reflect the same changes as 2022-76. The amendments would be as follows. Amend each paragraph to add, quote, Assembly Bill 7642 before, quote, Senate Bill 7238, and to add the words, quote, as amended for 2022 to follow the words, quote, Senate Bill 7238. Additionally, the first paragraph shall be amended to change, quote, Committee on Civil Service and Pension, end quote, to, quote, the New York State Legislature, end quote. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Before I vote, I would just like to say briefly, because I've been here probably the longest of anybody up here and have a good understanding of the history, I would like to say that we have always supported our police department. This really isn't about supporting the police. It's about trying to fix a problem that is over 20 years old. I mean, I have been in Lynn Daly's home, probably while Paul was out on patrol. And I can remember joking about a faulty electrical switch in his home. And his wife got a kick out of it because Vin Daly is an electrician. So that was kind of an interesting situation. But we do support the police, and we have been trying to solve this problem for quite a long time. For some reason, we were never able to get it to a home rule request. There's just a lot of hoops to jump through. And the ball was picked up again last year, probably the beginning of last year, the end of the year before, by Miss Denise Murphy McGraw. She kind of picked it up when it had been sitting around idly and said, I want to get something in front of the board to do a home rule. And we are here today with this. So I do want to thank not only Miss Murphy McGraw, but I want to thank the 4 police officers that have hung in there and worked and kept a good frame of mind and a good attitude for the 20 plus years that this has been going on. So with that, I will vote yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
I just want to echo Council Member Delarada's comments and thank my fellow council members for all their hard work on this. There were many phone calls, meetings, and a lot of discussion about this. And as Council Member Delarada said, we've always been supportive of our police officers and our police department. And concessions have been given on both sides to get where we are today. And collaboration, as you said earlier, Madam Supervisor, is what makes it work and what makes it work better, especially on your part and the controller's part. Giving me some reassurance about the, financial impact, and that over a period of time, the town's financial impact will not be that great. So I am very supportive of this, and I vote yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The amendment passes. Is there any other discussion? Will the clerk please call? Oh. Thank you. May I have a motion on the resolution as amended?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
So I would like to start by saying that I truly appreciate everybody that came tonight to speak, everybody that wrote to us. I have gotten, as I'm sure we all have, countless phone calls, emails, text messages over the last few days, a week or so. And I appreciate everybody who reached out, whether they were in favor of this resolution, whether they were not so much in favor, or whether they just simply had questions. And I think the idea that we can discuss this, debate this, and talk about it is part of democracy and part of what makes our community as great as it is. But in my opinion, this is very simple. We are righting a wrong. These 4 officers should be in the same retirement system as every single other Niskuna police officer. The town has an obligation to fix this, and it should have been done a long time ago. And I'm glad that we can do it tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Moskowitz. Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd like to say it hurts my heart to think about the 4 officers and all the stress and anxiety they've had to go through for the last 20 years. As we heard tonight, not just them, their families, their parents worrying, their sisters. So I hope this helps you feel comforted and moving forward with, just the dignity that you handled the situation. So thank you very much.
Are there any other comments, discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Aye.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Okay. I'll return to where I left off. Sweet Jesus.
74? No.
Hey, Vinny.
How are you? I
Well,
want to thank everybody. I can't thank you enough. Well remembered. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Did you fix that light switch, Vin?
Take care.
I will now introduce Local Law D. Introduction of Local Law D. Moving on to Resolution Number 2022-74, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution calling for a public hearing regarding proposed changes to Chapter 37 of the Town Code of the Town of Niskuna entitled Police Department.
Thank you. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
So Jessica, you sponsored
Oh, so
that?
I can't second.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 202275, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing certain budgetary modifications.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please read?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Call
Yes.
the roll.
Oh.
So sorry. Sorry, Jason.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes,
5 ayes.
the resolution passes. 677. Resolution number 2022-78, sponsored by Councilmember De La Rada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing a regular member to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. A resolution number 2022-79, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin and Councilmember Moskowitz. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the purchase of GPS mapping equipment and software upgrades.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-80, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution adopting bond tax compliance policy and procedures.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan,
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-81, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution adopting continuing disclosure procedures.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution 2022-82, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan and Councilmember Moskowitz. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution implementing a facilities use manual.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-83, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution calling for a public hearing regarding the joint increase in improvements of the facilities of Sewer District Number 1 and Sewer District Number 6 in the town of Niskayuna.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-84, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution calling for a public hearing regarding the increase in improvements of the facilities of Consolidated Water District Number 1 in the town of Niskuna.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-85, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin and Councilmember Moskowitz. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing an individual to the position of Water and Sewer Maintenance Worker 2 in the Water and Sewer Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-86, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin and Councilmember Moskowitz. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution approving the warrants for residential and commercial utility billing for the second half of 2021.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-87, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the submittal of a grant application to Niskayuna Community Foundation.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-88, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution to retain an independent contractor to provide grant writing and administrative services to the town of Niskayuna.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-89, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin and Councilmember Moskowitz. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing a well pump inspection and any necessary repairs.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please read, call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-90, sponsored by Councilmember McPartlin and Councilmember Moskowitz. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the supervisor to submit an application for an annual permit at the Albany landfill and authorizing costs thereof.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-91, sponsored by Councilmember De La Rada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing a chair to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I had the opportunity to sit and chat with Mr. Frary at length a couple of weeks ago. He has a lot of experience on the ZBA. He is very knowledgeable on the laws pertaining to building and zoning, and I'm confident that the town and the ZBA is in good hands under his leadership.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Yes, having worked on this board with Mr. Frary, I'm glad to see that he is willing to step up and be the chair for this committee. I think that he will do an excellent job. As Councilmember Moskowitz said, his knowledge of our town codes and zoning codes is excellent, and he should be an excellent chair for this committee.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-92, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the supervisor to retain outside counsel.
May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to table this for further consideration.
Do I have a second? The motion does not carry. Is there another motion?
I'd like to make a motion to make an amendment to this, there, to have an not to exceed clause for 1 year of $15,000.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
No.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
So we have 4 ayes and 1 no
That was on the amendment.
on the
That
amendment.
means
Correct.
the amendment passes. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution as amended? Thank you.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
This is a discussion on the amended resolution, correct? Mr. Hess has worked for the town previously, and I'm confident that his experience here in Town Hall will be an asset to the town attorney's office and to our town attorney as we all work collaboratively to continue moving the town in the right direction.
I'd also like to note that this council that we're retaining is for a limited period of time, and we will be conducting a search for a part-time or a full-time salaried employee to serve in the legal department. Any other discussion?
Yes, I did have the opportunity to work with Mr. Hess while he was a town attorney and I was a town board member. Mr. Hess's services were in one way or another ended. There was considerable discord between Mr. Hess and the town board. In the time period after that, there was also considerable discord among Mr. Hess's family members against the town board in the time after that. I am at a loss with all the attorneys that we have in the town of Niskayuna and the county of Schenectady, why we are going back to somebody that we had hired and ended a working relationship with, who is also in conflict with, if not several policies, at least several issues with the town. It seems to me that we're just inviting a problem to grow and to fester that we actually got rid of several years ago. So that would be my point of order.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
No.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes,
4 ayes, 1 no.
the resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-93, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing submittal of a grant application through Schenectady County Initiative Program.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes,
5 ayes.
the resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-94, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution authorizing the supervisor to execute a license agreement with a local artist for use of Lions Park.
Is there any, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes,
5 ayes.
the resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-95, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution accepting grant funds for body-worn cameras for the Niskuna Police Department.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I'd like to just point out this was another collaborative effort with a lot of people involved. I'm hoping that with the body-worn cameras, with this initiative, will increase public confidence, increase transparency, protect our citizens and our officers. I think this will help our officers and prosecutors do their job. So I'm excited. Thank you to Seth and Detective Gafaga, Chief Koshin, Beth Greenwood, Supervisor Puccioni. Thank you for everyone for participating on this project. It's very important.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
We saw tonight how much support our police department has. I think we're all on the same page supporting the department. And I think this is one more tool that is not only extremely useful, but a tool that the officers need, not only to protect themselves, but to protect the community and the public that they serve. And I'll echo Councilmember Brennan's remarks and thanking everybody who participated in the project. I know when we first took office, there was a presentation that was done on several different cameras that were trialed. So thank you to everybody who worked on that. It's an important tool.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes,
5 ayes.
the resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-96, sponsored by Supervisor Puccioni and Councilmember De La Rada. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution appointing an individual to the Planning Board and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes,
5 ayes.
the resolution passes. Resolution number 2022-97, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan and Councilmember McPartlin. Will the clerk please read?
A resolution showing support for Ukraine against ongoing Russian aggression.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I want to thank you for putting this forward. I know I called you and said, I think we need this resolution. As an elected official, even in a small town in the United States of America, it is important for all of us to speak out as elected officials against what's going on in Ukraine. And I want to thank you for putting this forth and able to do that and show our solidarity with the Ukrainian people as they fight for their sovereignty.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I'll echo that. And I support this resolution because I know it's important to our community because I saw it myself on March 13th. People from all over our community, babies, retirees, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, the fire departments, the police officers, moms and dads, dentists, everyone came out and felt good to be together as a community. People were generous with their financial contributions. They were generous with their time and effort, making posters. It was great to see everyone together, and it felt good to all be together. So this resolution is important to our community, and we were able to see that firsthand. You know, Jason was there, and Supervisor Puccioni, was able to authorize this in 6 days, which is, from what I've been told, unheard of. So it was definitely another collaborative effort. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Seeing no other discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Moskowitz.
Yes.
Councilmember Delarada.
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin.
Aye.
Councilmember Brennan.
Yes.
Supervisor Puccioni.
Yes.
5 ayes.
The resolution passes. I'm going to move to go into executive session pursuant to Public Officers Law 105(1)(f) to discuss matters leading to the employment, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person. After the discussion in executive session, there will be no further business taken up by the board. Do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.